Um, Welcome. This is the Leadership TKO live night show. Welcome to everyone. Those of you who are live with me on Facebook, and there may be some of you, of course, who is live on Spreaker and iHeartRadio, as well as the Leadership TKO Station.com's website. I do want to welcome everyone here. Welcome aboard to the show. Now, we have a little bit of a different flow to the show on tonight. Okay, a little different show, but I will let you know that normally, of course, I go live Monday through Fridays around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and normally on Saturdays and Sundays around 7 o'clock p.m. on or from my fan page. But I decided to do something a little bit different. I was led a different way. I said, you know what? I'm going to allow people to enter into my world just a little bit as far as, understanding a little bit of the background, because it's good. Everyone sees the professional side. Everyone sees, of course, what we do with regards to our careers, but you don't really know the story. Now, I'm not going to go into really deep detail regarding the story, but I will share a couple of things. I'm going to share with you some really critical things that led me to an important twister in my life, and a twister that actually shifted my life to go in a direction not by myself, but with an amazing other individual. So I'm going to share with you a couple of things. I was like, how should I start this thing? How should I really lead this thing off? I can always go once upon a time in a faraway land, but that's not going to be real either. And everyone should know, okay? Everyone should know that I'm a pretty much a real and transparent individual. And so if you feel led to sharing this, go ahead and share this onto your timeline or wherever it is that you want to share it. So again, Lakeisha McKnight wasn't always born Lakeisha McKnight. I was born, of course, as Lakeisha Baker. Okay, Lakeisha Baker, that's how it started. In Paterson, New Jersey. If anyone knows or familiar with Paterson, New Jersey, it is an inner city in New Jersey, not too far away from New York City. And so always been a tri-state girl, a city girl, growing up in New Jersey. And, I grew up with my cousins, always been surrounded by other individuals, playmates, family members. We always got together, gathered around during holidays, the traditional type of things. I was raised with my grandparents being present. I had my uncle present. I had, of course, my aunts present. My mom was there. Now, my father was present, but as far as my mom and my dad being together for an extended period of time, no, that was not the case, okay? Because they did separate when I was a young little girl, okay? And so having grown up primarily with my mom being present, but I did see my father every now and then as well. So he was still involved, but definitely being raised within the household of my grandparents and my mom, and just being raised around some amazing individuals. These individuals will definitely show you a model for endurance and strength, because the strength that a woman has in being able to raise a child, on her own, I tell you, it's there's power within a woman. So for every single woman out there raising children, I commend you, okay? I commend you, because it is not an easy task. It's not an easy feat. So, growing up in a home with my mom, my grandparents, my aunts around, my cousins around, definitely had people to play with. I am an only child, okay? On my mom's side, I'm an only child. I do have another sister who definitely resides somewhere in the Virginia, North Carolina area. And so growing up, man, I just had that model of strength within my mom. My mom always had this model of resilience, having witnessed her endure some hardships when it comes to relationships, having witnessed, of course, also the flip side of it. Okay, with my grandparents. My grandparents were married for, my goodness, it had to be over 60 years that my grandparents were married. And so having that model of what a marriage looks like, was definitely ideal, for a growing girl, in the inner city. And so blessed to have had that. But most importantly as well, it's within this household with my mom and my grandparents that I have the solid foundation of knowing who God was, okay? And getting an understanding of this, understanding the importance of, coming together as a family and laughing and all of these, important elements when it comes to just living life. And so I always witnessed also my grandmom. I remember times when my grandmom would, put together pies. And you all know, of course, your grandparents can make some pies, right? So my grandmother would make pies and she would send them pies out to different family members and friends. And we would go to the market and get lots and lots of food to be able to give to people who are in need. And so my grandmother was like the ideal missionary. Okay, so whenever there was a need, wham, my grandma was right there. But my grandma also taught me the importance of prayer. Okay, she taught me the importance of prayer and the importance of having a relationship with God. Because I would always witness and actually view, what she did within her lifestyle, the things that she did, and how, they constantly, what they did was between my grandparents. My grandfather would go to work because he was a former police officer. Okay, so he would go to work and then my grandma would be home and then they would alternate. So there was always someone home. Okay, so there was always someone solid. There was a solid person, a solid leader inside of the home. And so my mom, of course, she would be doing what she needed to do, going to school, trying to raise, me as a young woman and also working at the same time in the nursing field. So I would observe all of this, many nights of her staying up, trying to do those papers, trying to stay up and study for exams. She was definitely a go-getter and she did not stop and did not quit when it comes to fulfilling her goals in the nursing field. And so I observed all this going on. But even in the midst of what seemed great, of course, there were some hardships and some bumps along the road. So even in this home of a Christian household, there were some difficulties. And for any of you know, if you are someone who has a relationship with God, you also know that there's also going to be some trials and some situations you have to overcome. So yes, I actually had to overcome, sexual abuse. I had to overcome trying to figure out, man, who am I as an individual? Okay, there were moments where, because of all this going on, I struggled. I was like, man, who is Lakeisha? Did I truly matter? Was my life truly important? I went through periods of that and trying to figure out who I was as a young woman and coming into my own. Okay, so growing up, and then of course, not necessarily having that person in to say, you know what, you are beautiful. You can go out and do this. I just, it was just this inner drive, and I knew it couldn't have been nothing but the hand of God that was on my life, because it could have went in a totally different direction. And we've all heard of stories where because of abusive situations, you went left or you went right. Okay. But I stayed on a specific path when it comes to academics. It was that academic anchor that also kept me, because I stayed as focused as I could when it comes to getting my education. So moving forward, even beyond then, I went to college. Yes, I went into the educational system when it comes to going to college. Went to Penn State University. Okay, got 2 degrees there, right? Graduated from there and went to, of course, graduate school, gradually. Went to graduate school, okay, and got a master's degree in social work. And because I knew that I loved people and I wanted to understand, how the community and how the home, how the home was supposed to function and how all of this worked, how everything was connected when it comes to social beings. And so I wanted to get a deeper understanding of that. But then also at the same time, I also knew that I had a hunger and a thirst to know more about God. And so it was during these pivotal years that also I went closer and I drew closer and closer to God to seek to understand more about what it is I'm supposed to do and understand who I was as a young woman. And so as I did that, okay, and as I was in college and received formal education, I was connected to an amazing organization. And it was, yes, a faith-based organization, Alpha Nu Omega Sorority and Fraternity Incorporated. And so it was through this organization that, God began to show me some things about myself. Okay, he showed me some things about myself, but also at the same time, he wanted to reveal more of who he was to me. And so he had certain individuals that I was close to actually depart, okay, and exit, out of my life. And I'm wondering what in the world is going on here. Okay, because anybody that knows me knows that I am a people person. I love people. Okay, despite your flaws, despite the things that, the mistakes you made, I still love people regardless. And so, with all this happening, I'm like, what in the world is going on? The people that I love the most, they're like exiting, they're gone. So he began to reveal certain things to me in regards to why that was happening, and understanding how he wanted my full attention in that season. Okay. And there's something about, God trying to get your attention, and he will make sure that he does have it. Okay. And that's exactly what happened. Okay. I began spending more and more time with him. And it was during a season in my life, and I remember it distinctly. I was reading a book by Juanita Bynums. It was called Matters of the Heart. And I was like, oh, why am I reading this book? A sorority sister gave me the book. Okay. And so I read the book, and I was like, okay, let me see what's going on here. And so I proceeded to read the book. And by this time, when I received this book, actually, I was graduated from school, from my college education. And so I remember reading this book, and it was so crystal clear to me when I read a portion of the book about me going forward. And it's almost as if the voice was so clear, and it just hit me so hard, because I was on a path actually, to really go to law school. A lot of people don't know that element, but I wanted to go to law school at the time. And so upon reading that book, though, everything shifted, because it was at that point that I knew that I had to go in the direction that God was directing me, and that was being involved in the ministry. And so ever since then, and saying yes to the calling of going forward in ministry, I began to be connected, or I should say that God connected me with different individuals, pastors wanting to take me in and to really just give me the study that I needed. Because I remember distinctly one night just having a talk with God and saying, God, look, if this is what you want me to do, I'm going to need direction. I'm going to need instruction. I don't want to make a mess of all of this. I don't want to make a mess. I don't want to really not necessarily embarrass you, but I'm supposed to be a representation of you. I need to know what I need to do. And so he began to bring these individuals in my life, pastor friends, and, slowly but surely, of course, growth happened, and maturity in the faith happens gradually. And so I began to become a bit more clear as to what it is that he wanted me to do. So long story short, a couple things began to happen in my life whereby I received many diagnoses from the doctors. And I didn't know quite what was going on. And so I would go back and forth to the doctor trying to figure some things out. I was told one report. It was one report that nearly devastated me. And so I remember feeling like pains and aches in my body, and I would not know what's going on. There were many days where I would go into a room, and I remember it distinctly like it was yesterday. I would go into a room, and the lights would be off, and I would just remember laying at the end of my bed and crying, because I'm trying to figure this out. I don't know what in the world is going on with me. Like, what is going on with my body? And so, of course, I go back to the doctor again, and they say, no, it's not this, but you have this. I'm like, well, what is it? Because you just told me it was this thing. Now it's another thing. And so then, of course, upon other checkups, I would go back to the doctor again and got a third diagnosis. And they told me with the diagnosis that it was incurable. And they also told me that I would never have children, that I was infertile, and that I would not be able to produce. It was at that point where it seemed like my life took a turn, because anybody that also knows me knew that I wanted to have a family and I wanted to have children. So I looked deep within myself. I said, something has got to give. Okay, it has got to give. And I remember, of course, being in my grandmother's home, and of course, picking up that Bible. I said, now I know that there is some scripture, there is some word on healing. And so I began to look at a couple of resources and also look at a couple of verses. And it was at that point that God began to teach me himself, and I remember this, the importance of prayer and the importance of praying scripture. There's a one thing to just pray, but then there's another thing to pray scripture and to stand upon his word. Okay. And also he taught me the importance of spiritual warfare, because there were some things going on that I did not know about. And so in the midst of praying, I remember, calling out and crying out for Africa. And I'm like, why is Africa coming up in this? And so long story short, today, as I'm before you right now, totally healed, nothing wrong. Okay, some of you probably know the fast forward element of this story, but nothing is wrong. I, of course, am fertile. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But everything is good, completely healed. Okay, sitting here, of course, before you and sharing this story. All right, knowing completely who I am and whose I am. No confusion as to who I am and what my identity is. And I have to definitely give credit and honor to God, as well as those individuals who were motivating me, who were praying for me. I know, of course, my grandmom and my mom and everyone else, of course, who I grew up with, they were praying for me during these stages. And I could not understand it for the life of me. Okay? But I tell you the truth. It was during these years also that I met some interesting individuals. And I definitely have to share with you how I met, and of course, when in college, you can be very busy, just busy doing things that you shouldn't be doing. Can I just be honest? All right. But it was in college, and hopefully I can bring this up on my computer really quick. Let's see if I can pull it up. Here we go. I think my computer's a little slow, but hopefully it'll pick up. Okay, there it is right there. Let me see if I can show my screen. There it is. So, as I was in college, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. As I was in college, there was a certain period in time where I was very savvy with the computer. I remember dibbling and dabbling on the computer. And many of you probably heard of this website from the past. It was called Black Planet. I don't know how many of you remember Black Planet. But yes, I was on Black Planet, and I, of course, putting together websites and doing different things and such. And then also, I remember going on this one distinct website, and it was excite.com. excite.com. But more specifically, it was the African American chat. Okay, it was the African American chat. And it was at this particular point that things begin to change for the good, okay? And took me down a different path. And so I'm going to sit this photo right here because many of you know the direction in which this story is going to go. But there's more to the story, okay? There's more to the story. It doesn't just stop right here, but I'm going to tell you that we're going to continue with this, okay, for sure. We are going to continue. So I'm going to drop it right here. I appreciate each and every one of your time for being here to get at least the first part of this story. But this story right here is to be continued. You all be blessed, and we'll be continuing with the story on tomorrow. God bless and have a great evening.